Quiet Place 2 was written and directed by John Krasinski, and we are back at it again with the Abbott family that follows the events that happened in the previous movie, where they now have to escape their beloved home and venture out into the outer world, where they seem to realize that the monsters are not the only things that they have to worry about. Now, first things first, I absolutely loved the first movie. I thought the first movie was fantastic. The premise was very good. The acting was phenomenal with the lack of dialogue that they were given. I thought that there were very little things to complain about. I thought it was very suspenseful, and obviously if you've seen the movie, some of the stuff that happens towards the beginning of the movie is definitely shocking in and of itself. So it's almost, like how could they do better almost outside of a little couple tweaks? And I have to say, this one is also fan-fucking-tastic. So I also want to get into a little bit of this before we actually went forward with the review, since I'd never reviewed A Quiet Place 1 before. I love the fact that some of these comedy actors or people that are known for their comedy are actually going out of their way and doing stuff like horror. We have Chris Rock that just did something with Spiral with a Saw movie. Famously, we have Jordan Peele, I want to say his name is, if I forgot the last name, I apologize, who made Us and who made the acclaimed Get Out. I thought those were two very fantastic movies. And we had John Krasinski, who made A Quiet Place. And a lot of people were on the fence at the beginning of that, thinking like, oh, it's Jim from The Office. And I had never seen The Office. I knew he was a comedy actor, and I've seen clips of it. But I was also very curious to see what he would do because it had been done prior with Jordan Peele. I have to say, he did a phenomenal job with writing this movie and directing these past two movies. I think this has to be chalked up on some of the best shit that he's ever done, that he should be very proud of doing. I mean, to be a guy and to be typecast possibly, or to be thought of in a certain way for a lot of people is very tough. You could definitely see that now with like the people who, like in Adam Sandler's group, that they are trying to do different things nowadays because they were typecast as something for so long, and now that they have the opportunity to branch out their wings, or spread out their wings I should say, it becomes better content, I believe, or at least it gives it more of a variety, and I give more respect for the people to do that. So the big question was with A Quiet Place 2, how are they going to progress the plot? What's the next thing that they're going to do with the plot? And while I do have some minor complaints that I would have had at the first movie, and I'll get those out of the way now, the only thing that really I didn't like too much about these two movies, or that I thought was kind of a negative, was the overall, how is there this power that's being generated? Like, I know I've talked to people and they're like, oh, there's solar panels, and it's like, do we really know that if there's that many people left on the planet that know how to operate solar panels? And I get that that might be a good answer for that aspect, but I always thought the aspect of like, where are they getting the power from to generate all the stuff that they need to generate, whether it's just lights or anything like that, it always seemed to kind of bug me slightly. But outside of that, there's really not much else to complain about this movie. I thought this movie was awesome. One of the new additions to the movie that I did like very much is Killian Murphy. Killian Murphy, some people may know him as the guy who played Scarecrow in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. He's obviously done other roles before, but I feel like that's more of, some people are going to be like, oh, he played that role, and yes, he did. He is a very, very good actor. He's a fantastic actor. Sometimes you kind of see him get lost in the shuffle. Sometimes I don't think he does as many movies as some other people do, or he's not well known for movies, but he is still very, very good. And he had a tough task to be the next guy in this movie. I will also issue a spoiler warning here from now on. If you haven't seen the first movie, there's going to be some elements in this review that reveal or spoil the last movie, so that'll be the warning for you. If you haven't seen the first Quiet Place, I definitely recommend it. Now, Cillian Murphy's character has to then take the place of John Krasinski, the father of the group, because he ends up dying at the end of the movie in the first one. So now, instead of just having the mom, the daughter, the son, and then this newborn baby, he now has to bring himself into the situation, and he now has to be the other lead adult male character. And that might have seemed weird on paper at first, but I thought they did a great job with the concept, and I thought Cillian Murphy did a fantastic job in the role that he was given. Emily Blunt is always good, as usual. I think she really brings, you know, the calm, badass kind of mom in a way, but also she's very caring and she's also very worrisome. And overall, she just did a very good job. I don't have much complaints about any of the cast, really. One of the best things about this movie, by far the best things about this movie, is the child actors. Everyone takes kind of a back seat as the adults sometimes. Killian Murphy does have his moments with the one of the child actors, and Emily Blunt is obviously the mother of the other children, so she has to be around. But eventually, we kind of take a step back from those two, and we let the two older siblings take care of business. So you have the daughter who is deaf, and she does a great job with what she's given, because it is very hard to direct somebody who you have to do sign language with, I assume. Or maybe it's not, I don't know, I'm not a director, but it just, you also have to convey the emotion to her sometimes, you know? And sometimes I feel like it's easier to convey the emotion that you want to get out of somebody with dialogue, actually, rather than, like, hand signs. But I guess, you know, what do I know? Well, I'll say she did a very good job. My favorite one in the group was the son. There is a scene at the beginning of the movie, or towards the beginning of the movie, involving the present day, because the movie does take place at the beginning. It shows day one for about maybe 5-10 minutes of the first chunk of the movie. It shows day one and what happened, which is a phenomenal scene, mind you. We'll talk about that in a second. But not that long into when they show present day, the events that happened after the first movie, there's something that happens with the son, and the acting in it was fucking great. And now let's jump over to the first scene of the movie. A lot of people praise it, and myself included, the idea that A Quiet Place, the first one, didn't show the beginnings of the events. You showed the rules, kind of, and you didn't want to overload the information to the audience at the beginning of the movie, as far as like, wow, this happened, and how did they figure this out? It's kind of like you jump into the deep end, and you're like, no, we're in this. Like, we've been in this, and it's like we have rules and standards that we had adhered to. That's great. Seeing day one, though, in the next movie and how everything happened made it so much better. And honestly, there's so much in the first opening scene that I loved that I really can't give away. If you've seen the trailer for it, you've kind of seen some stuff in there that I kind of would have praised a little bit, but I won't show it to you in this video. It's just so you can go in cold, kind of. But there are some scenes in there that I absolutely love. And another thing that I love about this movie, see, we just give so much positivity now after all these movies that have come out. We just want to give some movies some love that are really well done. Another thing that I really liked was the camera work and how they frame stuff, and it's all just, there's so many long takes, and I'm a big fan of people that kind of like do long takes, like if they just kind of keep on something for a long time, because it takes a lot of work to get certain things right in like a long shot. So many things have to go right, so many beats have to be made at the right time, and when you do it consistently and it's great, and it fills my heart with joy, man. It fills my heart with so much joy that I could see this level of production with the camera work, the lighting, the editing, the audio, all of that stuff is fantastic. And it would be, it is redundant to say in this sense, but it goes without saying that the audio work in this movie, much like the first movie, is fantastic. I mean, when your movie is dependent on you make as little sound as possible, and then the people who work in the department of, we got to make these little like footstep sounds, and we gotta, or like a sword coming out of, its holder, like you get people that work in studios specifically for these things. This is their time to shine, and this is like some audio geniuses like favorite movies ever, is that they get to be like, oh my god, like, it's just noise that we make in the studio, and it's fantastic. And the last point I'll make with this movie before I grade it is the idea of how great it is as a horror movie. This movie is tense all around. It is so tense. There are scenes of levity, though, that let you kind of breathe a little bit, but like when stuff goes down and stuff hits the fan and we're in the moment, man, the scenes are just so great. Like, you're watching these people move around, and any little moment that happens, you're like, oh my god, this could go wrong, and then so many things could go wrong, and then like, oh my god, the monster could come in, and it's just so well done with its tension of, where they're walking or what they're doing. And I have to say that This movie does the one thing that a horror movie should do that a lot of movies don't really get to do nowadays, is to be scary. A lot of times, horror movies are in it for the jump scares, for the false scares, the dream sequences. Separation was full of those, and while Spiral did have some very scary moments or sudden moments, this movie for sure beats out those last few movies that I've seen well out of the park. This is a very tense movie. This movie knows that it can get you on edge, and it doesn't cheap you out with anything. The only time I've ever seen a false scare in A Quiet Place, either one of these two, was, I believe, there was a raccoon that fell from the ceiling or from the roof in the first movie from something, and that's it. Most of the scares are pretty much like, they're scares and they're there to scare you, and they have a meaning for it. And that's all I can ask for in horror movies nowadays. I don't want the cheap stuff. I don't want the stuff that's like, you made me jump for a loud noise and that wasn't even that scary, and I predicted it, right there. That kind of sucks. No, this movie genuinely does a great job in setting up the scares. And even if you predict it, sometimes I predicted some, but at least they weren't false scares, and that's something I can appreciate. I'm going to give A Quiet Place 2 4.5 stars. It is a fantastic sequel. This is just these two movies together. I hope they don't really make any more, because I feel like this is a fine point to end it on. I feel like that they're gonna make more, but if it were me, these are the only two movies that you need. This is a great story. This is kind of a great way to round it out, in my opinion. Again, this movie is just, I would go out of your way to see it, and I know a lot of people are still hesitant to see movies. I wouldn't say you should be too hesitant anymore, but nevertheless, if there's a movie that you wanted to see recently and you were like, man, I need that theater experience again, and I need that, feeling of being in a movie theater again, this movie for sure, this one needs to be at the top of your list, because John Krasinski, once again, knocked it way out of the park. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to y'all next time.